I'm Dan Fitzpatrick at stockmarketmentor.com on Saturday, September 21st. Our last free chart, I covered Sprouts Farmers Market, and I was noting that this was fitting into my IPO strategy, which is really, it's pretty simple. You look at the initial high wherever the stock trades. Might be on the first day, like with respect to Facebook, or it might be, within 2 or 3 days, like here. Could be much longer. But you look and see where the stock is trading in relation to that first, over exuberance high that ultimately leads to a pullback. It's amazing how many times a stock comes up against that same level and then pulls back. I'm not talking about this, but I'm talking about just kind of some sideways consolidation. I mean, maybe ultimately it drifts higher, but it's amazing how many times the stock struggles with this, pulls back, and then ultimately does blast through. But the trick is that you wait. You can trade the stock in here. I'm not saying not to trade the stock in here. I don't care. Knock yourself out. What I'm saying is on this particular strategy, what you do is you wait for the stock to close at a new high, after a new high relative to this. It would be, hey, an all-time high. The first all-time high was right here. Okay, that was the all-time closing high. And so then what do? You buy the stock. So let's see how that played out on Friday. You can see the stock gapped up, and no, it wasn't because I featured it on my chart of the day. But you can see the stock right off the bat came up here and early on blasted off. So if you're in here, you're in here at 42.50, you get a couple bucks, you get a nice, 2%. Your 5% move pretty quick. But then the stock after that, it just kind of petered out. And by the way, this was what's happening to the market. I mean, everything was trading down. The only thing that wasn't was this one, Facebook, towards the end of the day. Netflix kept trickling sideways. Tesla, always a crowd favorite, trickling sideways. And Sprouts pretty much did the same thing, came up and then was trickling sideways. We got a little buying into the close, but here's the deal. So if you bought this stock and flipped it for a day trade, nice trade. I'll take 5% on a day trade anytime. But now the thing is, this is I'm not going to say it's formed a tombstone doji or whatever, where the low is, the intraday low, or excuse me, the close and the open are very close together right at the intraday low. That's not the case here. I think this is still, what I would call a power move. A very nice move higher on super strong volume. So in this case, though, I think the stock's due for a rest, particularly with the market resting. So the stock continues to close up above the upper Bollinger Band, which is a sign of strength. That's a good thing. But I can't buy the stock right now. Hopefully you get a couple of red days here. And then look to buy the stock if it pulls back to 41, something like that. I think that I have no idea what the valuation is on this company. I'm sure it's probably pretty high. But every time I go into one of these supermarkets, they're always pretty crowded, and their food is kind of always really expensive. Not like Whole Paycheck, otherwise known as Whole Foods, but I think this stock is ultimately going to go higher. You just want to be careful now about how you enter it, but the IPO strategy has been triggered, so it's a stock that you want to own. Okay, members, I'm going to do some continuity here in our second video. We're going to go over that Chinese menu of stocks that I talked about last week, looking for ones that have pulled back to get us to the right buy point. You're not just buying the right stocks, you're buying the right stocks at the right time. Okay, so I'll see you there.